All right, so there I was, stuck in this training gig my company forced us into. I ain't a fan of these things. All this team building nonsense and PowerPoint presentations. But hey, it's a job, right? Anyway, let me tell you about this current character who made this whole thing more memorable than it should have been. We're getting divvied up into teams, and there's Karen giving me the stink eye from the get-go. I'm thinking, what's her problem? We start the training, and my team is rocking it. We're like the Avengers of whatever task they've thrown at us. But Karen's team, a train wreck, I'm talking about disaster level. Like, did they even read the memo? So, we're presenting our stellar work, and Karen can't handle it. She leans over and drops this bomb about my attire, saying it's inappropriate for the workplace. I glance down at my jeans and t-shirt, thinking, lady, we're not in a courtroom here. But I shrug it off and keep going. Fast forward to lunch, and I'm psyched about this meat sandwich I ordered. The delivery guy shows up, and Karen's already got it in her clutches. She looks at me and says, "You don't need this. Your body's too much already." I'm staring at her sandwich, and I'm like, "Excuse me, did I just step into a Mean Girls sequel?" That's when I decide I've had enough of Karen's crap. I turn to her and lay down the law about body shaming. I'm no bodybuilder, but I've got my share of muscles and I ain't apologizing for it. Look, Karen, I say, I don't need your fashion or dietary advice. I'm just here to get through this training without losing my sanity. She huffs and puffs, but I'm not letting it slide. And you know what? The rest of the team is with me. They're looking at Karen like she's the weird one, not me. So we finish up the day and I'm thinking, well, that's the last I'll see of Karen. But no, life's a sitcom, and guess who's in the elevator with me on the way out? You got it, Karen? She tries to make small talk like we're pals or something. Hey, great presentation back here, she says. I'm side-eyeing her so hard, I might sprain something. I mumble a thanks, not really wanting to engage, but Karen's on a roll. She starts talking about how tough it is to be a woman in the workplace, dropping terms like glass ceiling and gender bias. I'm just nodding, not really caring about her sob story. Then she pulls out the big guns. You know, she says, we should stick together, us women. Support each other. I'm thinking, lady, you just insulted my outfit body, shamed me, and stole my lunch. Now you want a sisterhood moment. I couldn't help but laugh after everything she'd pulled. But here's the twist in the tale. As I exit the elevator, I'm mulling over her audacity. Then it hits me. I'm not just a team player. I'm the finance guy. I spend my days swimming in numbers and reports. And you know what? I remember something fishy in Karen's last quarterly report. It was like a financial hiccup, a blip that someone less nerdy might have missed. So instead of just brushing her off, I decide to play the game. The next day, I'm in my element, buried in spreadsheets and reports. Lo and behold, there it is, a mistake that would make any finance head wince. I shoot an email to the higher-ups, casually mentioning the error I stumbled upon. No accusations, just a helpful FYI. And guess what happens? An investigation is triggered. Turns out, Karen didn't just mess up in the team building exercise. She messed up where it really counted. Now, I'm not out to ruin careers. That's not my style. But Karen needs a reality check, a big fat dose of humility. So, she's summoned to the boss's office, and I hear the echoes of a serious scolding. It's not about termination, but it's enough to make her rethink her holier than thou attitude. Word gets around the office about the finance guy who outsmarted Karen. I become a bit of a hero, the undercover avenger of the accounting world. And you better believe I strut into the break room with a new sandwich, giving Karen a little nod as I pass. She avoids eye contact, and suddenly, I'm the one with the upper hand. Revenge served on a bed of fiscal responsibility. It's not exactly the Hollywood ending, but hey, it's the corporate world. We take victories where we can get them. And that, my friends, is the story of how Karen learned that messing with someone's lunch has consequences far beyond hurt feelings. For some backstory, I worked as a valet in a small coastal city in college, and the restaurants I worked for were very popular for both locals and tourists. We'd generally be busy year-round, but as the restaurants are both waterfront, spring, summer, early fall are our peak seasons per se. The downside to these restaurants is that parking can be a huge pain. Combined, the restaurants can seat around 400 people at any given time and can usually turn over about 2,500 seats on a busy weekend. But the parking lot can only hold about 60, 70 cars at a time, which isn't much at all. That's why the valet and there. We have about 25, 30 designated valet spots. Used to have double that amount. But I digress, and are really good about utilizing all of them efficiently so we can park as many cars as possible, thus getting as many tips as possible. Being that the valet spots are kind of in a weird spot, but really close to the restaurants in our stand, and there aren't any signs that say valet only, we usually show up a bit early and cone the spots off so people know they aren't for self-parking. Now, most people see the cones and recognize those spots are pretty clearly not available, but some people are so dumb or jerks that they will move the cones and park in our spots anyways. Disclaimer. There is a parking garage for overflow parking, but people don't particularly like using it. People do this pretty regularly, and we're usually pretty cool about it. One of the valets will normally just walk up to them as they are parking and tell them that the spot is reserved for valet, and they'll usually comply. Obviously, this was not the case yesterday, or I wouldn't be writing this right now. While we were in full swing last night, some douche, Bag is not 100 feet from me, moving a cone so he can try to sneakily take one of our spots. I was talking to a customer, so I wasn't able to immediately go tell him to not park there. After finishing up talking, I walked over to Douch as he was getting out of his car and immediately knew I had encountered this exact guy trying to do this nonsense before. After this encounter, I knew revenge was going to be necessary. Our conversation went as follows. I told him, "Hey man, I'm sorry, but these spots are for valet only. That's why we have the cones set up. If you'd like to self-park, you can park in this main lot," pointing to the full lot or in the parking garage, but there's nowhere to park in that lot and I don't want to park in the parking garage. You guys always do this to me, so if I valeted, I could just park here. That's nonsense, bro. I'm parking here whether you like it or not. I was pretty taken aback and basically just walked away, not wanting to get into a fight over a parking spot. I knew it was time this guy learned his lesson. Now, I don't have the authority to tow his car or give him a boot, and I wouldn't anyways because I'm not a jerk, but my power is in the pure number of cars I have access to. Luckily, he did this at about 8 p.m. I contractually only have to be there until 10 p.m., at which time I can park the remaining cars in certain places and then leave the keys with the bartenders inside. Most nights I would stay to get the tips, but tonight I was dropping keys. Conveniently, Douch had parked in the area where we move cars to before we drop the keys. My plan. Use the valeted cars to block douche in and then leave with him having no way of leaving until the cars around him left. There was one car that would be particularly important, the one directly in front of him. I had a special car for that spot. It was owned by a restaurant employee that I knew wouldn't be off until 2 a.m. Perfect. I maneuvered all the cars around him in a way that didn't make me look like I was intentionally blocking him, but in a way that made it look like I had no other choice. Everything fell into place perfectly, and I could already feel a justice chub starting to form. I went inside to drop the keys and explain to the restaurant manager what happened and my revenge. She loves us and said she'd 100% have our backs, which I figured she would. I told her to text me and tell me how everything played out. This is the text I received last night at around 11 p.m. The guy just came up to me mad. He said there was a car blocking him from leaving and that it needed to be moved immediately so he could leave. I tried to explain that you guys have to put cars there before you leave and that you even told him to not park there. I guess that made him mad, so he started raising his voice at me. Bar manager saw and told me that he had been drinking for a while, which I assumed from the beginning. I told him that I couldn't, for liability reasons, allow him to drive home since he had been drinking. He got really mad because he lives 40 minutes drive away, but ended up taking an expensive Uber home. She told me she slipped in the argument that he was going to get another ride whether he liked it or not. Edit. Just a couple things to add to clarify some things. This is a privately owned parking lot, as most parking lots are. The restaurants who owned it gave us permission to use this lot and told us where they wanted our spots to be. Just because something is open to the public doesn't mean it's not privately owned. These restaurants also did not want us towing booting cars. 99% of the time, going up and telling people they couldn't park there was sufficient, and they would move or give us their keys, and we could move their car if needed. If not, we'd whine to them, but ultimately couldn't do much. This happened several years ago. I no longer live in this town nor valet. There were some signs that said valet parking only, just not enough in my opinion, like 2 signs for 2025 spots. Mom and I were sharing I don't work here lady stories, and she shared how she met my stepdad. I knew they met at an airport, but I didn't get the full details. Until now. Several years ago, Mom was a brand new flight attendant, her dream job. She was heading to her gate, excited for her first ever flight as an attendant, when she gets stopped by our villain. Karen? The conversation went roughly as follows. Karen, excuse me. Mom, how may I help you? Karen, I need you to upgrade us to first class. Mom, I'm sorry, but you'll need to talk to the gate agent. I'm a flight attendant. Mom could understand Karen's confusion because gate agents and flight attendants wear the same uniform. However, they're completely different departments. A gate agent can't do what a flight attendant can do and vice versa. Karen, I don't care. You're going to upgrade me to first class. Poking Mom in the chest, right? Effin'. Now, enter our hero. Stepdad, who just so happened to be the captain of Mom's flight, was getting some coffee at a nearby shop, and he overhears Karen's entitled rant. He comes up. Stepdad, what seems to be the problem, man? Karen, finally, I'm Karen and I need to be put on first class on flight 120. 3. Stepdad, that's my flight. I'll speak to the gate agent after you apologize to my flight attendant for your entitled behavior, or I'll have you kicked off my flight. Now, most people would agree to do this, but as you can probably guess, Karen isn't one of them. Instead, Karen then does the stupidest thing you can imagine. She tries to punch Stepdad in the face. What Karen and Mom didn't know is that Stepdad is a Navy veteran who used to train fighter pilots and is in good shape. The next thing Mom knows, Stepdad has twisted Karen around, had her arms pinned behind her back and calling for security. The flight ends up being late because Mom and Stepdad were given statements and agreeing to press charges. Karen ended up getting pressed with assault charges and getting banned from the airline. That evening, once everyone finishes up, Stepdad comes up to Mom. Again, the conversation went like this. Stepdad, hey, I wanted to apologize for that. I heard you're brand new and I hope that hadn't scared you off from your job. Mom, nah, I have 2 kids. It takes more than that to scare me. Stepdad, still, I want to make it up to you. Are you free this evening? I know a really great restaurant in town. Mom, I'd love to. A few years later, they got married. Not the most exciting story, but one that left me speechless at the audacity of some people. Last week, I went to a flower shop with my mom to buy some plants and supplies since I'm decorating my room and we're improving our garden. In this shop, most plants are outside in the sun, and you can get a small container and put all plants you want to buy inside, then go inside the store to pay. All the plants have names and tags with the price, and this is one of the oldest flower shops in the city. It's also the cheapest. That's why we shop there. My mom had ran into an old friend when she went to pay for the plants she chose, and I knew she was going to take some time to go back to the car, so I decided to continue looking at the plants outside to buy more for my bedroom. I was dressed in casual clothes, just jeans and a black shirt. Not at all similar to the yoga pants and white t-shirts with the name of the store. All the staff was wearing. It's summer here. I was the only one outside, and I was holding the container I was going to put the plants into to take inside, but I wanted to take my time to research each plant to know how to care for it before buying. I'm mentioning this because I want you to understand that I absolutely did not look like I worked there. Suddenly, a woman approached and started looking at the tags in each plant. I didn't take a good look at her since I was focused on my phone while I searched how to care for dumb cane plants, but she seemed to be older than 30, 5 and younger than 50. I'm not good at guessing ages. I heard her say, "Is this the price for the desert rose? That's so expensive." But I didn't look at her because if she wasn't talking to me, I didn't want to intrude. And if she was talking to me, I'm autistic and I don't understand small talk, nor do I know how to do it, so I don't engage in it. She made a few other comments about the price of the plants, but I just stopped listening to focus on my phone. A few minutes passed and I gave up on buying the dumb cane plant because I would have to buy a big pot and support for it, and I didn't have that money at the moment. So I move on to get some herbs that were missing in our garden when I heard, "How much is this?" Again, I ignored it. Mainly because I didn't work there, but there's no response for a few seconds. When I look back, she's looking at me mildly annoyed while holding a plant. I say, "I don't know. I don't work here," and turn back around. I heard her say, Oh, okay, and just stand there. I chose my herbs and went inside to pay while she was still outside holding the plant and looking around, as if waiting for something. That was when I realized that she was being rude talking about the price of the plants while thinking I worked there. The audacity. Thinking of this made me very annoyed, but nothing that I could do there. After paying, I went outside to put everything in the car. She had left without the plant,